of things quite different from how I perceive things in text. Please watch me for just a few moments. There seems to be the friend of Jesus whose name is Lazarus, the greatest friend that Jesus has ever had in his ministry. Lazarus is the house in where he makes it conducive for Jesus when he's ministering. Jesus has preached out of his house. The house of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha has been the institutionalized church that allows Jesus to do the ministry that he's called to do. And so because they are givers to the ministry of Jesus, because they love God, because they extend themselves to God, that they know that Jesus is their friend. And you know, friendship gives you certain rights and privileges. Friends I can call at 1 o'clock in the morning and they'll respond to me. Friends I can call, true friends I can call at 3 a.m. and said, I'm on the side of the road, 295, and my tire's flat. Will you come give me a lift? A true friends. Now, y'all, some of y'all got some of them things that they call themselves friends, but they don't have a phone. Those are needy and greedy, but they ain't friends. The truth of the matter is that a true friend you can call in a dire strait and they will respond to yourself. One text says a friend will give his life in exchange for another friend. Look at somebody and say, I don't have many true friends in my life. Don't have many true friends, because true friends will pay the price by giving their life. That's why I don't use the word friend. I use the word camaraderie. You okay with me? You all right with me? I may even call you sweetheart or dear or precious heart, but I don't use the word friend lightly, because friend, now I'm trying to understand. If Lazarus is the friend of God, why God treats him the way he treats him? Trying to figure out in the text, because the Bible says that they send word in advance. And they say that Lazarus, your friend, is sick unto death. And Jesus responds, y'all, in an unorthodox manner. Watch what he says. He says, this sickness is not unto death. Meaning that I can't go anywhere right now. I've got to stay right where I am. And I'm busy doing what I'm doing. And so Jesus says that Lazarus does well. Have you ever been there in your life where you thought your commitment to God, your Christian service, your do-gooding, your kind acts, your tender mercies, that in the presence of agony look like God ignores the cry of frustration? Yeah. We taught that if we will pray, then God will answer. What happens when you pray and God says to you that you are not going to get foreclosed on? You're not going to be lightless. You're not going to die. That the infernal adversity and intensity will not matriculate to the point that you will not be able to come from it. What happens? That's what happened. Brother laying there at the point of death and getting ready, grasping his last issues of breath, breathing with every breath as though it's his very last time. Sucking air like it's gold, like a drowning man grasping at straws. And the last choice that he's got, he says, I'm going to call for my friend Jesus. And Jesus says to him that this sickness, he does not say, in other words, let me help you in Negro terms, she'll be okay. The truth of the matter is that there's sometimes in your Christian experience, it feels like God says, you will be okay. But the truth of the matter is, he uses definitive words. He says, this sickness is not unto death. So now let me see here. Now. I got to understand that every experience that I've gone through, that it's not final. For the Greek word of death here refers to finality. And so what he says to Lazarus, folks, is understand that his sentence is not final. What he's going through is for the glory of God, but it ain't final. Let me help you with this. I understand that everything may not be going the way you wanted. It may not be peaches and cream in your life. But I come to be just like Jesus, the errand boy. Don't shoot the errand boy. I'm just delivering the message that even no matter what you're facing, it's not final. You may be going through it, but God gonna get some glory out of your hell. Sometimes it's hard to imagine when you're frustrated and dealing with stress, strain, heartaches, and pain. When you're dealing with the infernal of frustration, when you're going in the kitchen of depression, licking every bowl, dealing with sickness and dealing with financial misheavels and uncomfortable conditions, that God can get some glory out of your infernal. How can God get the glory out of my dysfunctional family and my jacked up relationship, my abusive home? How can God get some glory out of the hell I'm going through? What Jesus' response to Lazarus is, let him alone a little while. I'll be there in just a minute, but I'm going to get some glory. And God told me to tell you, I've got some partners in the glory business, that your situation is not final, but he said, I'm going to get some glory out of your mess. Now, let's see what happens now. Jesus shows up and tells his disciples later, he says, boys, it's about time we go check on Lazarus. One text says that Jesus' original statement to the disciples when everybody was excited about going is that this man, he's asleep. The disciples said, if he sleeps, he does well. Now, please understand, God's vernacular of description concerning your situation is quite different than the way he is. See, many times you see things as final. You see things as, I'm not going to make it. You see closure towards a situation. God's vantage point to your situation is that it's just interim. You in the middle of it when you think you're to the end of it. When you see it ending. Now watch what Jesus does. He walks along the shores of this text. Now the disciples said, now, Master, you can't go where he is because you know they're trying to kill you. But he said it is expedient that we go and wake him out of his sleep. I want to share this with you, that your situation is asleep. Your greatest frustration, that it ain't dead, is simply asleep. How do you deal with when God tells you that you're not going to lose it, but they take it? How do you deal with when God says you're going to have them and somebody else goes down the aisle with them? How do you deal with when God says it's going to get better, but it looks like it's going to get worse? Now Jesus shows up several days later. And it says, by all intents and purposes, that Lazarus, Sister Barbara, is dead. They have checked, they have done all they can do to preserve his existence, waiting on the coming of the Messiah. They're like us, because sometimes you've tried to keep it going as long as you can. You try to keep the marriage going. You try to keep the jobs going. You try to keep the money going. You try to keep the love going. Every way you can find, you find some way to keep in connection, to keep the thing still going. But the truth of the matter, at the end of the day, it is still crash. Yes, I was dead, but I'm a living testimony that the God I serve can pick you up, turn you around, put clapping in your hands, dancing in your feet, can turn you around. I was sinking deep in sin, far beyond the peaceful shores. But grab somebody and tell your neighbor, I should not have made it, but I'm here today by the grace of God. Shall I
testify 1 minute. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, I don't know.